Okay, so in this video, I'm going to just give you a brief overview of a Flutter component, or even a way of fetching data you called retrofit. So retrofit is a way of being able to fetch server-side data in a more encapsulated way. So if you were not using retrofit, then you would be building functions that kind of look like this, where you would make an HTTP GET or an HTTP POST to get data, and then you would be handling the response data from the response code and then converting the data from a string format into a JSON format, and then creating your objects from it. And instead, you'll be creating very simple annotation code that looks something like this. And so if you were to build something for like uh, crypt crypto coins, you could build something that looked like this. And you would put these sort of markers here. And when you prepare this, and you can see that there's also these files with the .g. These files get generated automatically when you run a certain build command. So if you run, let's see, go to the bottom here. So if I were to, these are, if you can see, it says generated file, don't modify by hand. So if I delete these, and where is also this one here. This is also generated, so I'm going to delete this. So if I run this command here, dart run build runner build, and I add this additional parameters of deleting conflicting output. If I run this, it'll regenerate those files here. So here's the client, and here's the data model. And so these two files get generated automatically when you run that command. And when you run this, it just basically will run and then attempt to fetch some crypto coins data from a RESTful endpoint. This can be used for any kind of RESTful endpoints. So if you run this, so if I say run, start debugging, and I'm going to run it in this Android emulator here. There's some pros and cons about using retrofit. The pros is that you can make your code very simple. And so if I try to just run past this and kind of ignore the exception for now, you'll see that you'll get an error. You might potentially get an error. And then if you look at this error, you might be able to tell what the error is about. So you could say it's a 404 error. This typically means that either the URL is wrong or the permission code is wrong. But if you actually try to debug it, so if this is where it actually goes and tries to fetch the data, get cryptocurrency. If you look at this, this is some of that code that we wrote ourselves. But then if you look at the auto-generated code, so if you look at get cryptocurrency, you can then see what's going on internally, and you could potentially just step through this and see what the problem is. So you could put a breakpoint at one of these and then look at what the problem was. So that's the pros and cons about using retrofit. So the convenience is that you would be able to write very much more simpler code, but the downside is that it generates code that you might not be entirely familiar because it gets auto-generated, but you would have to walk through this code and then figure out what the problem is. That's the problem. And so the benefit is easy to write code. Downside is auto-generated code that you would have to become more familiar with to get to be familiar. So I did actually produce a fix for this. So I actually fixed the code, and I'm going to rerun the build, I mean the builder, so that it generates new builds. and I run it again, I'm going to just skip the debugger.
Please subscribe to this channel and like this video to support this kind of work.
And this time it was able to fetch the data from that remote source. Okay, so this is the kind of the overview and the pros and cons of using retrofit within a Flutter application.